Jon here. In this lesson I'm going to show you the best way that I know of when it comes to learning the notes quickly on the fretboard. I've been teaching this method to hundreds of students throughout the years, and I can promise you that if you follow my instructions to the letter, so really make sure you get it right and do that daily for 2 weeks, you should be able to find any note from the C major scale anywhere on the fretboard without a problem. And also, if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to show you how you can do this with all the sharps and flats as well. Alright, I'm going to start by demonstrating the exercise using the note C, and after that I'm going to break down the whole thing so you know what to do. So we got C8, C3, C10, C5, C1, C8, C20, C13, C17, C22, C15, C20, and finally C8. Depending on the type of guitar you have, you're going to do this slightly differently. The biggest difference is really how many frets you have. So if you have 24 frets, that's going to be one way of doing it. And if you have less than 24, meaning 21 or 22, you're going to do it a slightly different way. But the only difference is it's going to be that if you have a 22 fret guitar, the range for the ascending part of the exercise, meaning going from the low string to the high string, is going to be within an open string and the 11th fret. On a 24 fret guitar, however, we're going to have the range between the 1st fret and the 12th fret for the ascending part of the exercise. And for the descending part of the exercise, meaning we start from the highest string and going down to the lowest string, for a 22 fret guitar, we're going to have 12th fret up until however many frets you have on your instrument. And for a 24 fret guitar, it's going to be 13 up to 24. So that's the only difference. There's only 3 rules to this exercise. That's not a lot, but they are very important. The first rule is that you call out the note name and the fret number as you practice. And you do that out loud as well. And the reason for that is retention. If you only say the note name or even just think the note name, that's not going to embed itself as easily into your brain, which is kind of the point of doing the whole thing. Saying the fret will also make it more relevant for you because you have to actually focus a bit more instead of just sitting there saying C, 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 you know, like a weird Spanish lesson or something. So keep that in mind. And doing it out loud, well, that will basically enable you to hear it as well as you do it. And believe it or not, that actually helps with retention. Rule number 2, you always look and identify where the next note is before you go to it. So once I play C8 here, I will hold this note until I've found the next note visually, so by sight. You do not want to do this. C8, C3, C10, right? Because then you're finding the note by sound. And I'm a huge believer and lover of ear training, so don't get me wrong here, ear training is great, but this exercise is about you being able to identify the note that you want just by sight, because that's how you want to be able to use it when you actually play and use this in a practical situation. If you just remember to keep the note on the string you're at, keep that note going until you know exactly where to go on the next string. And a tip here, if you feel stuck and it's really hard for you to do this, what you just want to make sure that you hold the note. It doesn't have to be ringing the whole time, but you keep your finger here. And then you can use your right hand and just point around the vicinity where you're trying to find the note, if that makes it easier for you to find the actual note. But don't do anything like this where you can hear anything. Just, you know, might help you to point things out a bit. For example, I have C8, and then I'm going to go like, okay, so the A string, so with A sharp, B, C, and then, okay, so that should be C3. And then you try it, yeah, great, and so on. Third rule, if you make a mistake, and you probably will make lots of mistakes at first, is that you want to correct it right away. So, for example, I'm playing C8, C3, C10, everything is going great, and then I go C6. Oops, that's the wrong note. What you want to do at this point, you find the correct note, so C5 in this case, go back to the previous string, and just do this. C10, C5, C10, C5, C10, C5. And 2 or 3 times is enough, and then you just carry on C1, C8, and so on. Just correct yourself every time you make a mistake, and you'll find that over time you make less and less mistakes. Because if you just keep going and like try to just disregard that the whole thing happened, you're not going to learn anything. So instead, treat each mistake as a learning experience more than something that's really frustrating. So let's go through this exercise then again in a bit more depth. So I'm just starting here, calling out the note name, C8. Then I'm looking for the next note, C3. Looking for the next note, C10. Looking for the next one, C5, C1, C8. And now I want to restart this 1 octave higher on the same string. And there's 12 notes on an octave, so whatever number I have here plus 12 will give you the correct answer. So 8 plus 12 will be 20. Now, once we're up here, we just go down each string instead. But now we're going to keep it within the descending range. So again, for a 22 fret guitar or 21 fret guitar, we would be within the 12th fret and however many frets we have. And for a 24 fret guitar, you will be within the 13th fret up to the 24th fret. So, same thing, C20, C13, C17, C22, C15, C20, and then close the circle, C8. I like to do that to complete the exercise, so I'm always starting and ending on the same note. Even though I don't like the idea of using that method of finding a note, it's totally fine to use any of the other methods you've used before that includes finding the note visually. Meaning this one, for example, the octave trick that a lot of guitar players use. And that trick will be useful in the beginning, but once you've done this exercise for a few days, you're going to find that you don't need it anymore. So you don't need to unthink this way. If you find that you automatically, while trying to find the C note or the D string, for example, you automatically reference this note, that's totally fine. So don't fight that, just do that, but you'll find that eventually you're just gonna go straight to the easiest way, because that's another thing about our brains. We're very lazy or efficient. So that means that whatever the fastest way and easiest way for your brain, that's what it's gonna do. And when you do it with this octave trick way, then that's the easiest way for you at the moment. But once you've done it a few days with this new way, you'll find that you automatically just stop doing this octave trick thing. So the routine I wanted to go through is going to involve playing all the white keys, meaning all the notes out of the C major scale. I say white keys because that's what you have on a piano. You have all the white keys, that's basically all the unaltered notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And you want to do that every day. When I show this to my students, when I first came up with this exercise, most of them came back the week after and they had played only C for 1 week because they wanted to master that note, they said. And while that looks good on paper, it doesn't really do you any favors in the long run, because you're gonna rob yourself of one of the best things or features that our brain has to learn things faster, and that's pattern recognition. So if you only do C, it's going to be sort of out of context, but if you do all notes of the C major scale, your brain is going to piece together a lot of different things subconsciously. For example, like when you play D, for example, you're going to find that, oh, that's always a whole step up from wherever my C note were. And then when you get to the B note, oh, it's always a half step below the C note. So there are important things like that for your learning that won't be available for you if you do one note for 1 week and then go to the next note for the next week. So I highly encourage you to do all 7 notes out of the C major scale to begin with, because even if you would stop there and you don't even go to the black notes or the sharps and flats, and if you stay around for the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to approach that as well. But even if you stop at 7 notes, meaning all the white keys, that's really, really helpful, because if you want to find an E flat, for example, that's pretty easy. If you know where all the E's are, it's going to be a half step below. If you want to find an F sharp and you know where all the F's are, well, it's going to be a half step above, and so on. But like I said, if you stick around for the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to approach the sharps and flats as well. I'm going to demonstrate this once more with the note D, so you can get a better feel of how to do this and what it looks like when you do it yourself. It's very important that you don't try to do this with a metronome or anything like that. Just take your time and you'll find that you get smoother and faster just by repeating this. So introducing any type of timing element to this right now won't do you any favors. Fine if you want to do that later, but I don't think you need to. All right, so let's do it with the D note. So we got D10, D5, and then since I'm on a 22 fret guitar, D open, D7, D3, D10. Move up one octave, D22, D15, D19, and since I'm on a 22 fret guitar, I would do D12 here. If you have a 24 fret guitar, you do D24. And then the next string is A string, so I have D17. And finally D22, and then move back to where I started, D10. So again, don't be afraid of doing all 7 notes and do them once. This exercise should take anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes. And that's quite a big gap. So in the beginning, when you first do this, if you're really unfamiliar with the fretboard, you'll find that it takes quite a long time to do all 7. But you can also break that up. So maybe you do 2 notes first, and then you do another 2 notes, and then you do another 2 notes. You don't have to do all 7 in a sitting, but you should definitely do all 7 within the day. If you find that a certain note is more difficult, I wouldn't practice that extra. I would still do that once, because you'll find that over time this will all even out anyway. So don't worry about that. Only thing you need to worry about is that you do the exercise once per day. And that means that you start down here, go all the way up, all the way down, and then you complete the circle. Then go on to the next note and keep on going like that. And then let the exercise work for you. So as long as you follow the rules that I talked about, you'll be fine, and you'll find that your ability to find the notes on the fretboard will be dramatically different in 2 weeks. As I promised, if you stuck around to the end of the video, I would show you how to do this with the black keys as well. Now, I really suggest that you do the C major scale first, the white key, so you have that as your basis. And once you've done that, you can add this to your practice or simply do this instead. Or maybe do the white keys on one day, black keys the other day, and so on. So you can divide it up in a few different ways. The best way to organize the black keys, in my opinion, would be to take the E flat minor pentatonic. So basically like the good old trusty E minor pentatonic, but 1 fret down. So we get E flat, G flat, A flat, B flat, and D flat. But we also get the equivalent when it comes to the sharps. So we get D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. So you practice this exactly the same way. The only difference is that I would call out both the sharp name and the flat name of each note. So I would go, for example, for D sharp, E flat, I would go D sharp, E flat 11, D sharp, E flat 6, D sharp, E flat 1, and so on. Then continue on with the rest of the notes. And again, I would cover all 5 here, just as you would do all 7 in the first exercise. This is a very crucial thing to learn, and I found that even if you've been playing for 30 or 40 years, you still can have sketchy areas of the fretboard. So it's not something that just goes away with time. You need to work on it. But I've also had students that basically started playing guitar with me, and they also had this down within a couple of weeks, even though they were total beginners to the guitar. Just spend these 2 weeks, and I think you'll be really happy that you did. If you have any questions or comments, just post them below, and it will really help me if you would like this video and of course subscribe. So thanks again, and see you in the next lesson.